Is that the first thing on this recording? Probably. All right, great. Another red letter moment in my life. All right.
I get to go.
Really quickly, two major cell types. Fundamentally, we have these cells like a modern bacterium, which is what we're looking at here, and then we have a cell like this, which is a modern animal cell. I could write bacterium and animal, but more fundamentally, what is most different about these?
The organelles.
The organelles, the presence of organelles. All right, so here we have the presence of organelles. Most notably, the DNA is found where? Yeah, it's found in the nucleus, right? Protected. Whereas here we have no organelles. And I'm going to say the DNA, and I'm going to introduce, you've probably heard of it, but just in case, /RNA, just in the cytoplasm. By the way, what's the cytoplasm?
The fluids.
Yeah, cyto means cell, plasm means fluid. It's the cell fluid. You speak Latin, none of these terms are fancy. So what do we call these types of cells? Eukaryotes, eukaryotic, good. So eukaryotes, and these are prokaryotes. And prokaryotes. By the way, karyon means nucleus in Latin, so these should actually be called prekaryotes. They're basically before there were nuclei, pre-karyon, before nucleus. Eu means true nuclei. So that's what that name means. Again, speak Latin. These are the before nucleus cells, and these are the true nucleus cells. Speak Latin. Now these names are confusing. What's the major difference? We'll go into a little bit more detail here.
I was going to go to SET and take Latin, but they didn't let me in.
I'll teach you Latin, but just science Latin. That's all I know. My wife studied Latin. I did not. Yeah, there you go. So the main difference is they have nuclei, and that's where the DNA. They have organelles. They can thus be larger and more complex. And by virtue of that, they can do so. So these, on the other hand, have no organelles. The DNA is in the cytoplasm. They're smaller and they're less complex. But by virtue of the eukaryotes' large complexity, what can they do that prokaryotes can't? Sorry? Sure, yeah, that's true. I'm not going to put that here, though it is true. But just because they don't all do that. So if I put it here, it would imply that they do. But you're right, some do. They can be autotrophic. They can produce their own food. But they can work together. They can be complicated enough that they can form multicellular organisms. They don't have to. These, on the other hand, are always unicellular. They can form colonies. They can kind of stick together, but they don't fundamentally work together. In a bacterial colony, each individual bacterium is its own organism. It's its own bacteria. On the other hand, in you, if you scratch a little dead skin cells off your body, you haven't committed murder. Those are just some of your cells, but you got lots. You're made of a lot of them. And the organism isn't any one individual cell. In fact, you're kind of a ship of Theseus. Over the course of your life, most of your cells will be replaced. Not all of them. Your neurons don't tend to be replaced. There's some liver cells and things like that don't tend to be replaced. But a lot of the cells in your body, your bone cells don't get replaced. But a lot of the cells in your body die and are replaced over the course of your life.
Every 7 years is when a full cycle is completed.
Yeah, and that's a little overly simplistic, but it's a good guideline, absolutely. Because again, the duration of your life, as long as they're not damaged, your nerve cells will, once you're fully grown, once your brain's fully developed, your mid-20s, they'll be with you the whole rest of your life. Your skeleton, the bones, the chondrocytes and osteocytes, the cells that make up your skeleton, will be there most of your life. And on the other hand, your skin cells get replaced on a matter of weeks, right? Blood cells, matter of, yeah, so it's depends on the type of tissue we're talking about. This is why my lessons go on so long, because I get sidetracked.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
My fault.
That's okay. So now, from the domains, we remember that the first domains we had are the prokaryotes. Are the eukaryotes. And I shouldn't say that's the first domain, because it's actually the last to evolve, but that's okay. So we have domain eukaryota. And I suppose I should say eukaryota instead of pluralizing it, and then we don't know the short form. So really quickly. Oh, eukarya. Pardon me. What am I doing? Just eukarya. Eukaryote is the adjective form. Sorry about that. So domain eukarya, these are the eukaryotes. These contain everything with eukaryotic cells. I just want to show you quickly. Oh gosh, we're doing this again, are we? It's going to do it like 4 more times now. I don't know why it happens.
I don't know what happened.
I'm getting some weird error message these days. So if you look at eukaryotes, domain eukaryote, this includes like just everything from animals, fungi, amoeba. It's going to do it about 4 more times. Sorry, I got to figure it out. So this is one of the big domains. Oh, I think I must. Yeah, no, I think I was messing and I was trying to fix something else, and I think I screwed it up. So next we want to look at the other domain, which you'd think would just be called... Okay, yeah, no, it's great, isn't it? So then you would think the other would just be prokaryota, but actually we divide this into archaea and bacteria. But these are both not eukaryotic, which means they are, yeah. So we said the first level of taxonomy is the domain. And really, this just tells us in a really broad sense what type of cell we're dealing with. Eukaryotic cells or prokaryotic cells, and we break those down into archaea and bacteria. It used to be that we just called the domains eukarya and prokarya, but now we don't. All right, from there we get to the kingdoms. So this first one here are belonging to domain bacteria, and the kingdom also bacteria. All right. We're going to keep it brief here. All right. But bacteria are single-celled. They're small. Even by cellular standards, they're small.
Annoying.
Well, they are incredibly plentiful. There are bacteria everywhere. And they're ancient. The first bacteria, and sorry, on my cheat sheet I have this number written down, and then of course I didn't bring it with me. But we get the first signs of bacteria about 3.5 billion years ago. So timeline of bacterial life on Earth. So just to show you that kind of time scale, I like this diagram. I use this one a lot. Right, we get the sun ignition, we get the Earth, and relatively early on we get the prokaryotes. All right, but these are ancient prokaryotes. Does that make sense? They're ancestors to our modern prokaryotes, but we start getting modern bacteria relatively recently. Modern bacteria show up around about the time protozoa and corals and other really simple life does. So they are related to the earliest simple cells, ancient, but not the same as the earliest prokaryotes. So modern bacteria have evolved. The most ancient prokaryotes have been replaced, all right, at least en masse. They may be hiding somewhere or whatever, having left around unchanged. And that makes sense because, again, single-celled organisms evolve very quickly, right? And things that evolve very quickly change a lot, right? They change much faster than we do. Okay, just based on the domains, what do you think comes next? Archaea, very good. And I want to show you visually, just to look at like a micrograph of them, you'll see that archaeans look very much like bacteria. Does that make sense? I mean, if you were just looking at this diagram, you would be excused for thinking like those are bacterial colonies, right? But they're just, this is an example of, in the earliest days of taxonomy, these were all just classified as bacteria. But we have since discovered that they just are functionally different. Even though morphologically speaking, they look like bacteria, when we start digging into their biology, how their enzymes work, and their phylogenetics, when they evolved, we now know them to be distinct from bacteria. Does that make sense? And that's something that has happened like in my lifetime, where that sort of major change happened. So we used to call them a subset of bacteria called archaebacteria. But it says here that term has fallen out of use. The textbooks I have from university still say that, but that's just not how we teach it now. So we want to show the evolution of bacteria and archaea. Right? And so you can see that early on, we basically get a branching in each dimension or in each direction. So archaea actually branched away from bacteria at about the same time eukarya did, if that makes sense. So they're as unrelated to bacteria as we are. It's just that while bacteria were evolving as a set of single-celled organisms, archaea were also evolving as a set of single-celled prokaryotic organisms, but they evolved in different directions. So they are more